Well, got involved with Magnum really back in the early 70s when I met Joseph Kudelka. He was doing quite a lot of work in England at the time. And he used to stay with a friend of mine, well, not more than a friend of mine, we were colleagues, we were working on the same project. And so he saw quite a bit of my work as I was sort of coming through and so on. And I've been working in England all the time previously as a photographer, and I had a relationship with a French agency called Viva, and they sold a few pictures and got me the odd job. And when that project was finished, one part of it was actually the TEDs, which was my own project, and another part was called Survival Programs, which was working with two other photographers. And that was about inner city problems in Britain, but both British based. I started to want to travel. You know, I started to feel that that was the next step. And I needed an agency. And the obvious agency for me was Magnum. It was the work that I'd really sort of identified with when I'd seen it published and so on, had generally been by Magnum photographers. And as it happened, at the same time when I was sort of kicking this idea around, I got a call from Joseph saying, why don't you apply for Magnum? So it all came together. I mean, that's no guarantee that I was going to get in, but you know, that all came together. And fortunately I got accepted, and then I just started a whole different lifestyle really, with a lot of traveling and still doing a bit of work in England, but then, you know, moving out Africa, Central America, Lebanon, this sort of places. I'd spend probably about half of the year traveling in those days. I've started doing some workshops, you know, mainly through Magnum. I've always done a little bit of teaching, you know, but it was very much like one day here and a bit there and a bit there, you know, and it wasn't a full-time thing. For me, that's too demanding away from the taking of photography. And I don't do a lot. I do 2 or 3 workshops a year. That would be it. But I find for myself it's useful to sort of clear the sort of airwaves, as it were, to sort of articulate what you take for granted and try to pass that on to other people. And I just feel, you know, I've got a lot of experience now. There's probably something useful in there that I can deliver to, you know, a new generation of students who are interested in photography. And it's the workshop I like because it's a sort of a sensible period of time which can be quite intensive. And generally I find you can really see a difference. I mean, from the beginning to the end. It seems strange within 5 days, but it is generally noticeable. Fortunately, you know, you feel that something has happened. But at the same time, you don't know really what happens afterwards. You know, it's a bit like it all comes together with a lot of energy, but do they keep it up and do they build on what they've learned? Hopefully some of them will. And I think it all boils down to them beginning to get an understanding of what the amount of work that you have to do, really, and that you can talk your head off about photography. That won't make you a better photographer. You know, it's a process of doing it, getting it into your sort of almost DNA is what makes you a better photographer. And people understand this for sportsmen and just about anybody else. They kind of think photography is easy. I think a lot of people, and it's not. And that's one of the things you hammer away at. And yeah, it's enjoyable to do, and then you can go off and do your own thing for a while. I've been in Budapest before, but this was about 10 years ago, in fact, and it was literally for a couple of days holiday with my wife when we were sort of traveling around in Central Europe. So to be honest, I do believe I came here and went into the bookshop, in fact, but I don't feel that I recognise a sort of any serious shift within that time. I'm sure there was, but you know, the big things you notice about Budapest are still the big things you notice about Budapest. I think if I spent 2 weeks here or something, or even done a workshop before, then I'd be able to be more specific. But it feels like Budapest now, as it did before. The contact sheet idea has been around in Magnum for quite a long time. You know, people have done exhibitions. I've done exhibitions where I've put contact sheets up on the wall, you know, along with, and I know David Hearn has, and I think Jim Goldberg, and you know, it's part of a process I think we're interested in is didactic, that with the photo is obviously the one that you've chosen, but you're giving the viewer this option to kind of choose their own if they want to, or to try to understand how it is you came to that particular choice yourself. And I think that actually the Magnum contact sheet book is one of the most interesting book Magnum's done, because not only have you got the contact sheet plus the image that is chosen, you've got a text by the photographer, which is usually quite helpful about their thought processes or the immediate events that were around them at the time, that, you know, whether it's Patrick Zachman getting shot or whether it was, you know, just the photographer wondering about whether they're going to get the picture that they think might be out there and how they're sort of working at it. So as far as the book went, the selection, and the photographers were all closely involved in that. You know, they proposed contact sheets that they thought would be interesting, and the staff proposed to them contact sheets that they thought was interesting. And I think I got 3 in the book itself. But it's this process, I mean, it was left really, I think, to Andrea to choose which ones and how this exhibition was presented. I think if you get too many photographers involved, nothing happens. It goes kind of crazy. So it's better, you know, she's better kind of do it quietly herself and then say, there it is. It's, you know, I'm perfectly happy with the way it looks, and I'm sure everybody will be. Well, I think vis-a-vis the exhibition, I don't know if you can get them, I'm sure you can, but I would get a bunch of these little plastic magnifying glass. Not the loops, because you've got to put them on, but you know, just a sort of cheap, just so, because they're very small, obviously the 35mm ones, and just being able to sort of see into the photo a little bit more would be interesting. And I kind of like the idea that it's happening, you know, here in Capa's kind of hometown, as it were, you know, and in a place named after him. That, you know, it's kind of come back, but come back different, which is, yeah, fun.